night, YouTube. Just had to get myself together before I start. Okay. So, tonight, I just came for a couple words because it is quite late, so I don't want to stay here too long. I had plans to talk about a couple things, and I am going to rework that plan to fit into my current plan, which is to shorten it up a bit tonight because I have something else that I want to talk about. So, where are my notes? Okay, so first let me read the Bible verse. Let me just recollect myself with my notes here. Okay, so let me first start with my Bible verse, my chapter. I have to read the entire chapter. That's how it goes. Sometimes I don't have to, but for this one, I think I have to read the entire chapter. So it says, this is Jeremiah chapter 6. And it goes, O ye children of Benjamin, O ye children of Benjamin, gather yourselves to flee out of the midst of Israel, and blow the trumpet in Tekoa, and set up a sign of fire in Beth Hassarim, for evil appeareth out of the north, and great destruction. I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. The shepherds with their flocks shall come unto her. They shall pitch their tents against her round about. They shall feed every one in his place. Prepare ye war against her. Arise, and let us go up at noon. Woe unto us, for the day goeth away, for the shadows of the evening are stretched out. Arise, and let us go by night, and let us destroy her palaces. For thus hath the Lord of hosts said, Hew he down trees, and cast a mount against Jerusalem. This is the city to be visited. She is holy oppression in the midst of her. She is holy oppression in the midst of her. As a fountain casteth out her waters, so she casteth out her wickedness. Violence and spoil is heard in her. Before me continually is grief and wounds. Be thou instructed, O Israel, lest my soul depart from thee, lest I make thee desolate, a land not inhabited. Chapter 8 again, verse 8, not chapter 8. Verse 8 again says, Be thou instructed, O Israel, lest my soul depart from thee, lest I make thee desolate, a land not inhabited. I want to put a pin in that, where God basically is saying, please listen. When you hear lest my soul depart from thee, meaning before I take my spirit from you, before I take my energy from you, lest I make thee desolate, a land not inhabited, you have to be very mindful that when you have God with you, It is a gift. It is not a right. As much as God may favor any of us, I've learned this. It is not a right. When you have a sacred calling on your life, especially when you have, I think whether or not you have a sacred calling, you may not even have a sacred calling. You may just be one who has a relationship with God and you love God and God shows you favor. And I've learned, thankfully, by watching others, that doesn't matter your favor, that we have to be obedient because God has traditional values, what we consider to be traditional values. And what that means is in a traditional space where traditional values exist, you have to be one who respects your parents, respects your elders, bows down. And if you're not like that, they take it very disrespectful. Like they take that to be offensive, even though it's just like you're saying something with your mouth, but maybe you're verbally disrespectful to them, but in action you still take care of the house and whatnot. It doesn't work that way. Give me a second. As I was saying, there is no such thing as having so much favor with God that you cannot be either put back in your place or put away. Because I've seen people who I know for a fact have a lot of favor and very quickly, very quickly they were put away. And let me tell you, God doesn't, this is one thing I like about, when I say God, I mean all three. They don't have to do anything to you. You know, when human beings don't like you, they must put effort. They put effort. They take time. They coordinate to attack you. When you lose the favor of spirit, all the things that you were being blocked from that you did not know you were being blocked from. I've lived my life a very long time not being aware of the things that I was being blocked from until I found myself being gang stalked. And I realized, even spiritually, things that I recognized as people sending me spiritual attacks, now I recognize that they were really spiritual attacks all along. Like I knew there was something going on, but now I recognize them as spiritual attacks. And I recognized more than anything how much God has blocked me from. And even now, I realize that I don't even necessarily have to, one second. I recognize that even there's just been so much protection. There's been so much protection over my life. And there are other people that I have recognized protection over their life as well, but sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't recognize it because maybe that's just your normal way. So one thing that I have learned on this journey, I take this whole thing as a learning journey. And one thing I've learned on this journey is that don't push your luck. Don't push your luck. And I've seen people who had no time the first time. I mean, let me tell you something. There were people that I could see were suffering with God, long suffering. They had been suffering for a while for God. I saw it. I prayed for them. And that one time they made a mistake, that was it. Cut off clean. And I'm like that. I'm like that. because it's the intention what it shows. Now, God has original values, what we call traditional values. These are values that I very much respect, I abide by. Naturally, I've always been this way. We respect our elders because it's common sense. Everything that an elder does in life, they pass down to you, including their knowledge and their instructions. So they pass down everything. They want you to be aware of dangers around you, how you go about doing this, how you get, agriculture, business, whatever. They want you to know everything. They leave you everything. They have sweat, they have suffered for this knowledge. Suffered for this knowledge. And I look to like my real life elders, like, my grandmother. Indignities and injustices that they suffer. Sometimes people say marriage is longer than they should. Sometimes people go through things that are very difficult just to be able to turn around and bless you with something so you have it easier. And gratitude being something too much. I hear people talk about God in that way, where it's like God always wants you to worship and this and that. And I heard a beautiful way of it being put today is that, and I'm repeating someone else's words, so this is not my message, this is theirs, that we don't worship and pray just to give spirit energy, even though spirit does take of our energy as well and utilizes our energy, does drum them up. But when we're done praying, that's why we feel better. That's why we feel lighter, because we go in the spirit and we go like cast our problems there. And then we feel better. We get reassurance, whatever it is that we get from spirit. So it's not like God is making you, is like putting a gun to your head, forcing you. But when you look at everything you have and you look at your life, even if it may not be, and that's the thing, sometimes we tend to look at how far in the green are we, instead of thinking we should have been in the red. How far in the green am I? You're not even in the black. You're not even leveled out. So if you have, I said this, I've given this example a number of times where in my business, there were days where it's like, I maybe wasn't up a couple thousand, but whatever I was, if I was up $500, I literally went through in that day talking someone out of returning a $3,000 purchase. I should have been in the red, far in the red for that week, and I wasn't. And that's how I look at it. So I still say to my kids, even if whatever we make, we go in the back and we pray at our altar in the back and we say, thank God. Thank God that this happened for us, that we're still okay. Even if we were in the red, I would have said thank God, because God always knows the path forward. And I have seen people, like I've said, have suffered with God along the stretch, a long stretch of road, to the point I've gone in the spirit and been like, can y'all give this person a break? They're really trying. This is hard. I can see their effort. I can see their suffering. And even I had to rescind my prayer on people, because I was like, whoa, you violate God. It's a big deal. Let me tell you, they're sensitive. The way we are, I think sometimes they're more sensitive than us. They just don't show it. They're sensitive. You have to think about a parent. As a parent, my children have forgiven people that I will never forgive. I'm being upfront. My kids have gone ahead and forgiven already the people who betrayed them. I do not forgive it, because I saw it before it happened. I saw it happen in slow motion. When I say slow motion, I mean I'm sitting there watching it happen. And then I'm thinking to myself, this person put a lot of intention and planning behind this thing. This person's treacherous. It means my kid no good. So there's never a day where there will be an apology that will come in where I will say, okay, yes, you can come back here. No. If my kid decides to deal with this person, it'll have to be behind my back. It will not be in my face. And so this is how it is for your spirit guides, your God, is that they look at the things that happen and they say to themselves, if I give my child something, who is somebody to come and take it from them? If I bless my child with something, who is somebody else to come and take it from them? Who is somebody else to come in here and feel that they should put my child in a different situation than I designate them to be in? So one thing I will tell you, when I read this verse, it speaks to me very loud. Some verses, it's like we read them and we gloss over them. But this speaks to me in my heart, because this is a self-directed sort of position that I take. Be thou instructed, O Israel, lest my soul depart from thee. And I tell you, I say this all the time to myself, the only thing I fear is not having my family. Whatever they come to me and they say this is what we have to contend with, I can get over it. The only thing I ever fear is my family turning their back on me. Is my family saying, you with your own heart and your own intention disrespected us. Because I can tell you one thing. Even if people try to cut you off from God, God will rip through every mountain to get to you. If people try to block you from doing what you're supposed to do, answering your calls to God, God can take care of that. But if you yourself, self-directed in your own mind, sit and devise and plan against God, and planning against God, sometimes you think planning against God is literally planning against God, him or herself. Planning against God is planning against God's people, because let me tell you, everything we do is in service of God, whether we know it or not. So if God's people are out here doing God's service and you in your own mind craft to block them, by extension you're blocking the God that lives in them, that instructs them, that guides them, that walks with them. So you are literally working against God. Now, everybody doesn't believe in God. People have their own beliefs. People do whatever they feel that they want to do. And I have learned now to release that, to release begging people to please listen to God, to really, I even feel ridiculous saying it, but sometimes I have to say it. I have to say it. But I release everything when I have to recognize that sometimes it's on my heart to say something, but I got to accept how somebody takes it and how they deal with their situation, because even God accepts that we all have free will. We all have our own ability to choose. And while God can plead with us and be long-suffering with us and say, please, God sees you struggle. God sees you have good intention and you can't. But at the minute that you actually take yourself and make plans against God, by making plans against God's children, even the least, don't think about rank when it comes to this. Even the least of them, the one that does not have a critical role, you have put yourself in a position where God will take his or her soul, meaning spirit, from you. And one thing I can tell you, I don't know for a fact, but I don't think they give it back after they take it. I think when they take it, they're done. I don't think it's a decision that they go back and forth with, because it is such a blessing to have it in the first place. It is such a blessing to have it. What is the point to plead with people? Sometimes we do. I think there's a difference between a pastor in a church, or a pastor and say an apostle. A pastor has a flock that they're guiding. So they have people who are already thirsty, know they're thirsty, and people come to drink. And I feel like what I'm doing is more like of an apostle, where I'm going into places where people do not want what I have to offer, where people do not care about what I'm saying, where people knew and know very well what they're doing, consciously aware. And I feel ridiculous sometimes because people are older than me. They can be my father. They can be my parents. These are people who can be like an uncle or an aunt to me in age. And I'm trying to talk to those people about, you know, turning to God and listening and taking heed. These are people taking active losses in their life, and the loss is not enough to convince them. These are people are dying around them, and the death is not enough to convince them. These are people that are losing money, and losing money. Okay, hey, I'm not saying you're a great person if a deaths of people around you can't move you. That usually shakes a lot of people up. But losing money, I think most human beings will care about losing money, and that doesn't shake them. So you have to come to terms with the fact sometimes that you got to release with certain things. And it's like, it just is what it is. You know, it just is what it is. You got to just accept what you see. But this one, this verse is it's very powerful to me, because I took the example of somebody working against somebody else, and how quickly God just removed the protection. Didn't do anything, just removed the protection, and they fell in the hands of treachery. And I said to myself, yeah, I'm never crossing that line. When you're called and you have what we call a spiritual contract, but what I call a calling on your life or a blessing on your life, God has you in custody, your falls are harder and they're faster, because you are not going to be one of those fortunate people who is going to get away for a long time with doing things. You are not going to be one of the fortunate people who can go and steal and get away with it. It's not on your calling, therefore it must be blocked. And maybe if you steal the first time, you get a slap on the wrist and you get caught and they let you go. And the second time, they take you to jail. And the third time, who knows? But it's like, it gets loud really fast with the calling. Once the calling gets placed on your life, it puts you in the custody of the Most High. And, you know, it's a strict parent. I look at myself as a parent. I'm very strict. Like, I'm a generous parent. Like, I'm fun, but I'm really about like hard work and, you know, good values. And I'm strict about it. There's not like any leniency with certain things, because I don't want my kids to encourage bad habits. So God is like that with us. When we're God's children, God does not encourage anything that is not in your best interest. Whereas before you had to activate into your calling, you may have gotten away with things here and there, and now it's like they mean it now. They're serious. They mean what they mean, and they say what they mean. And that one thing I notice about God, they do not just say it for the sake of, it wasn't a coincidence. It's not like us that just choose words. Like, their words are very literal. They're serious about the words they use, and you only recognize it after. If they say the goat, if they say like a passing goat, and you're thinking they're using an example, you will notice they really meant like a passing goat. Like, it will happen like that. They mean it. That's why a lot of things in the spirit is so symbolic, because of the way that they communicate. So I just had to pause on that one. I want to make that remark, because if there's anybody out there who feels like there's a calling on your life in whatever way, do not try your luck in these callings, please. Like, most of us who genuinely love God, we don't have to be convinced. Once it doesn't take much. If God says A at 5 o'clock, we're there A at 5 o'clock. We don't waste time. We don't hesitate. But, and I'm not saying we don't have things that are difficult, that we find difficult to do, because God knows certain things will be difficult for us. But I'm saying consciously to disobey, we're probably less likely to be those people. But you know, there are people who sometimes there are people who have a calling who don't want the calling. There are people who steal contracts, destiny contracts from God, and they don't want the calling, they wanted the money, and God really wants the calling. And sometimes you don't realize how heavy these contracts are, and you don't know when this inheritance or whatever it is that people talk about, when is that? That could be at the end of your life, to be passed down to your children, and you never even get to enjoy it. We don't know. So you have to, it's a laborer's job, it's a laborer's contract. Everybody in here, it's an uphill battle, because serving God is not easy. It attracts danger, it attracts enemies. There are bigger enemies. You just know everywhere you go there is a problem, there's a hidden problem somewhere. And when you uncover it, it's going to be major. It's not going to be a small problem. It's going to make, because we don't go in places with little problems. We go in places with major issues. And so the issue you're facing today is not that big of a deal as much as you think it is. The issue you're facing, you got to look at it as not a big deal, because tomorrow will be a bigger problem. So you must see your life as, I am learning on this cycle to get to the next cycle. So you must keep that in mind as you're going through it. But that is verse 8. And I wanted to stop and talk about it because it's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned here. I don't think it's been maybe they've been intentional to show me that. Maybe they've been intentional about it. But I don't, in my soul, in my instincts, I don't think they were intentional about it. I think I just saw it and I took note of it. I saw it and I took such a big note of it, and I said to myself, that will never happen to me. And I thought, even when that person did what they did, I just thought to myself, above whatever they did, I know I couldn't even imagine what they must be going through trying to get forgiveness, or just to know that you had favor and now you don't. I cannot even imagine what that feels like, going to bed and waking up every day knowing that you're reaching out, calling to God. I don't know if God is answering. I don't know. Like, can you even imagine? That, I think, is crazy. So it's like, I just feel like when you get that opportunity, and when you are in that favor, you must treat your parents as elders with respect, because you don't even know, as bad as it is right now, you don't know how much worse the intention was for it to be. And I can tell you from where I'm sitting, I have a good idea, very good idea, how bad it was supposed to be for me. So like I said, I may not be in the green as far as I want to, but I'm not in the red, I'm not even in the black, because I know that God's favor is here. So sometimes from the outside, people might see you in a situation and might think, that's so hard, I would never want to be in that. And you have no idea, you would want to be in this. As much as it's a fight, you want to be in God's favor. You want to be important to God. You want to be an asset to God. You want to be able to say to God, well, who can do this? Who's going to do this? And not to say that other people couldn't be trained to do it, but you want to be an asset, is what I'm saying. Verse number 9. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall thoroughly glean the remnant of Israel as a vine. Turn back thine hand as a grape gatherer into the baskets. To whom shall I speak and give warning that they may hear? Behold, their ear is uncircumcised, and they cannot hearken. Behold, the word of the Lord is upon them, a reproach. They have no delight in it. This is another thing that used to confuse me, because I'm like, what do you mean you don't like God? What is there not to like? What is there not? And then I said, yeah, they don't know God. Then you gotta not know God. What is there not to like? How can you not like God? Do you know how many times I've sat there really puzzled by, I'm thinking, what is there not to like? There's literally nothing not to like. They're perfect. And I mean that. They're without flaw. There is nothing not to love about a loving parent. There's nothing not to love about a parent who's generous with you. There's just nothing not to love. To turn around and leave the God of creation to go and service thieves, destructive energies that will, at the end, when they're done, destruct your life. I can't see how a person would have an issue with worshiping God just to go and end up worshiping devils. So this is literal. Let me read it again because it's important. To whom shall I speak and give warning that they may hear? Behold, their ear is uncircumcised and they cannot hearken. Behold, the word of the Lord is unto them a reproach. They have no delight in it. Therefore, I am full of the fury of the Lord. I am weary with holding in. I will pour it out upon the children abroad and upon the assembly of young men together. For even the husband with the wife shall be taken, the aged with him that is full of days. And their houses shall be turned unto others, with their fields and wives together. For I will stretch out my hand upon the inhabitants of the land, saith the Lord. For from the least of them, even unto the greatest of them, everyone is given to covetousness. And from the prophet, even unto the priest, everyone dealeth falsely. Listen to this. And from the prophet, even unto the priest, everyone dealeth falsely. Listen, so sometimes I highlight significant things to me. I could highlight the whole chapter. Never, when I got into gang stalking, I felt betrayed. I felt betrayed because, there is a certain, like I said, there are certain things to me that are sacred. They are sacred. So spirituality to me, I believe, is something sacred. I believe that when you call yourself a prophet, a prophetess, a priest, a high priestess, that it is something so sacred. The first time, not the first time, but one of the first times that it really affected, it bothered me. I cried that night. It upset me. I was angered. Is when someone pretended to believe in what I believe in to try to recruit me to sell drugs. It hurt me because I was like, listen, there's a limit. There are lines. Like, you might want to go to every length to do your job, but isn't there a sacredness about spirituality? We don't cross that line, that we don't go into there. That now, on his behalf, I want to say, I don't think he wanted to do it. I think he didn't want to do it. But it just hurt to see that people would go that far. Because that's like me pretending to be somebody else's like religion, like pretending to be passionate about what they're passionate about just to like convince them to sell them something. Yeah, I want to sell it to you, not that bad. Even if I wanted it bad, just to me, it was a crossing of a line. Because you're pretending to love God, to do treachery. You're using God's word to do treachery. Another time was when the tarot readers, who have been put in place specifically to give people good advice during what is quite possibly the worst time of their life. They are going through quite the worst situation of their life. And these readers would see it fit to take small money, and I'm assuming they're getting money, and they had better be getting money. Now, there's some of them you can see they're scared and they're not getting paid. Some of them you can see that they're scared, but there's other ones you can see they either did a favor or they changed a reading. They did their reading, but they mentioned something, they said something in the reading. Now, I can differentiate that there are some that were cornered. They were cornered, and I can tell, I can see that they were cornered. and you can hear it in their voice. You can see that they're scared. But there's other ones, they did it happily with a joyful heart. Led God's people who were in the middle of the wilderness, alone, stranded, led those people astray. Whatever money they gave you was not worth it. Even if you didn't go against God, these people's money is cursed. So you took cursed money, and you led God's children who are just waking up astray. That hurt me. There's some things that you can see someone's trying to hurt you, and you know that this is a hurt person, and so you know this is an angry person, or these are angry people. You know these are people who are empty inside, they're black inside, and so it doesn't hurt. It might irritate you, but it doesn't hurt. But when you see things done against God, that hurts, because it's like, wait a minute, is it that serious? Who made you hate God? What made you like this? So those things for me are just like, they cross the line. So when it says that even the prophet, even unto the priest, everyone dealeth falsely. When a person has a position of trust in a community, and they call themselves, identify by a certain name, or God gives them a certain title, and they start doing stuff like that, it's an abomination. It's a curse into the community. When you do things like that, and there's people in our communities, a lot of them, that they give false information, that God didn't give them those messages to give. They give everything in the reverse. Treacherous to the core, black to the core. This is hurtful. If it hurts me, I know it hurts God, because it's like, for what reason to go that far? They have healed also the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. My God. Spirit is specific. I don't know how people are not afraid of spirit. It's because they haven't seen. They just don't know, and they don't believe. Chapter 14. They have healed also the hurt of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. Were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? Nay, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore they shall fall among them that fall. At the time that I visit them, they shall be cast down, saith the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way? And walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. Also I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not hearken. Therefore hear, ye nations, and know, O congregation, what is amongst them. Hear, O earth, behold, I will bring evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not hearkened unto my words, not to my law, nor to my law, but rejected it. To what purpose cometh there to me incense from Sheba, and the sweet cane from a far country? Your burnt offerings are not acceptable, nor your sacrifices sweet unto me. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will lay stumbling blocks before this people, and the father and the sons together shall fall upon them. The neighbor and his friend shall perish. Thus saith the Lord, behold, a people cometh from the north country, and a great nation shall be raised from the sides of the earth. They shall lay hold on bow and spear. They are cruel and have no mercy. Their voice roareth like the sea, and they ride upon horses, set in array as men of war against thee, O daughter of Zion. Today, before I came on here, I was praying and I said, God, I don't know how you feel. I don't think we should beg these people anymore. I think the time is done for that. I think that we've begged so much. We look, you know, when it's like a parent that comes to a child and begs and begs, and it's like the child thinks that because you're the parent and you're begging, like it's like the child has made you a beggar, like you're inferior. But they're doing that out of mercy, and they're doing that because they see that you're going the wrong way. So I talk all about the fact that God comes to us so sweetly, and she's so, she's, my mother is with me all the time, all day. My father as well, I talk to, like, we talk all day. And she's so sweet, and she will come and she will say, please, I just need you to try. Be a better person. Don't argue all the time. Be kind. Be this. Be that. It's hard for me. It's hard for me. And I'm thinking to myself, she does not have to come so peacefully, so quietly, so nicely. She doesn't have to come like that to me. She could literally be mad, lose her cool, have a temper. She can do all of that. And she doesn't. And I always think to myself, I'm grateful. I want to keep it that way. I want to keep it that way, where the relationship is so soft and so sweet, because they do not have to. None of that. They did not have to. God can put you can be put in a situation to do what you have to do, or it could be taken out of your hands completely. It can be taken out of your hands completely. Verse 23. They shall lay hold on bow and spear. No, let's start from verse 22. Thus saith the Lord, behold, a people cometh from the north country, and a great nation shall be raised from the sides of the earth. They shall lay hold on bow and spear. They are cruel, and they have no mercy. Their voice roareth like the sea, and they ride upon horses set in array as men for war against thee, O daughter of Zion. We have heard the fame thereof. Our hands wax feeble. Anguish have taken hold of us, and pain as a woman in travail. Go not forth into the field, nor walk by the way, for the sword of the enemy and fear is on every side. O daughter of my people, gird thee with sackcloth, and wallow thyself in ashes. Make thee mourning as for an only son, most bitter lamentation, for the spoiler shall suddenly come upon us. I have set thee for a tower and a fortress amongst my people, that thou mayest know and try their way. They are all grievous revolters, walking with slanders. They are brass and iron, they are all corrupters. The bellows are burned, the lead is consumed by the fire. The founder melteth in vain, for the wicked are not plucked away. Reprobate silver shall men call them, because the Lord have rejected them. Listen, I can't sometimes I can't understand, like, what is not to understand? Like, sometimes I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I know that God is misunderstood from the way that I hear people talk. And I also know sometimes when you go through things in life that are very difficult, that you will say there is no God. You will turn your back on God, things of that nature. I listen, I get it. I'm not going to say that I don't, because some things are very, they're tough. And that's putting it mildly. But when God comes to you and God, you know, I always say, when you get your Hail Mary, when you get your get out of jail card, when you get your opportunity that, to be honest, a lot of us don't deserve the opportunities that we get. Like, we just don't deserve it. It was out of God's grace and mercy. I'm not saying that you didn't go through things. I'm saying that you didn't deserve that much grace. I've been on the receiving end of grace that I'm like, I feel guilty taking, because I'm like, I don't deserve this much. It's a lot of love. That's how I felt when I first, when you first meet when you first meet God. I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody. When you first meet God, the love is so overwhelming. And I was like, I know I'm a good person, but this is so overwhelming. I don't think I deserve all of this. This is a lot. And then I heard somebody else talk about it, and I said, oh my God, we all feel like that. Where she said, when you meet the Most High, the love is so overwhelming that you weep, that you cry. She didn't even say cry, she said you weep, because that's what I was doing. I was weeping. I was like, oh, it was so overwhelming. And that love insulates you from pain that is happening in and around your life. And I remember thinking to myself, I look at this situation and I just thought to myself, God, you are long suffering. God will allow his and her own people to suffer while trying to save other people, while trying to help other people, while sparing people. Because even after people have done the worst, when they come crying, when they come back and they seem to be genuinely repentant, God will pause and say, let me hear this. But you remember, service is in action. Service, to serve, is in action. It's not in words. It's not in just sweet words. It's showing up when you need to show up. It's doing what you need to do. It's making the sacrifice. It's a sacrifice. Working for God is not... I bet people got shocked, huh? You thought you were just going to win the lottery. This is work. This is real work. And let me tell you, all you have is enemies. When you have God, it's like all God has is enemies. It's like everything is mad. Every entity is mad. Everybody, it's like, this makes no sense. What has gone wrong here? So this makes you attractive to energies that are very heavy, that are very dark. And believe me, God goes out of the way for people, to save people. Like, I mean, really, it's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of ways to try to save people and heal people and love people. But, you know, when I get these verses, I just read them. I am obedient and I read them. And this one, there are so many verses in here that are very specific in ways I won't even go into, that are very, very, very specific. And I don't think God is ever surprised. I think God is hopeful, but I don't think God is surprised. And in here, God is basically saying, like, when God says, gird ye with sackcloth, it's like basically saying, get ready for a funeral. I'm not gonna lie. Get ready for funerals. Because that's what they did. When people died, you put on sackcloth. Wallow thyself in ashes, make thee mourning, and as for an only son, most bitter lamentation. As for an only son, most bitter lamentation, for the spoiler shall suddenly come upon us. Listen, it's one thing to not know, and it's another thing to spit in God's face. And this is what I find is happening in these situations, is that people spit in God's face. Why? We must understand. You may consider yourself a God. We may call ourselves God-like or whatever, but you are not the Most High. You are not God. And sometimes I have to like catch myself and make that distinction. We may be God's children. We may be favored. We may be special. But all these gifts that you think you have, that you like, you'll die with it. We have to be accountable to our behavior, and you know, the decisions that we all make as people. Like, we have to, humility and respect, these are traditional values, what we call traditional values, foundational values, and they're in place for a reason. Look at the way society, I'm not saying society was perfect, but the way society functions when people, everybody knows their place. And it's not to say God wants to lord over you as if you're beneath God or anything. It's like God cradles you like a baby, but you have to also, you can't, like, you have, it takes two hands to clap. And I just find in these situations, it's like all over the place, people have been talking about this gang stalking thing and the suffering that people are going through. This can only be described as hell on earth. It's that bad. It's shocked me for so long. I tried to stop being shocked of how heartless and cruel people are. How could, like, and even with God giving messages daily for years. We are 4 years in, because most people, this started in 2020 in COVID, and we are 4 years in of messages. Now that's not long suffering. 4 years. You think they had to take 4 years to do this? 4 years of long suffering. So anyway, this is my message that I want to talk about today. So as I go through this and I gain more and more clarity about the world that we're in, about the world in general. Like, we heard about this, like maybe some of us, we've heard about this and we kind of brushed it off. People would come online and people would talk about, like, and we called them conspiracy theorists and all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as you have your spiritual awakening, you see it clear as day. It's crystal clear what's happening, and then you just know the world that you've been living in is very fake. It's not just because you got chosen to get gang stalked. You're seeing other people live in the fake world as well. And you start realizing to yourself, some of us, why we used to keep to ourselves, why we felt more comfortable to ourselves than amongst people. And I used to beat myself up about this all the time. Like, why am I uncomfortable with people? Why do I constantly, like, I get a little bit close and within 5 seconds I want to pull back? And I realize now. So first of all, I want to say, if there is a God, there are demons. There are lower entities as well. And demons definitely resent the favor that human beings have with God, that people have with God. Even people who think they look a certain way, they behave a certain way, you know, they're not as talented, they don't have as much money, and they put themselves down, they still don't know that they have favor with God. And demons are merciless with us. And it saddens me to think that there are people who think that certain entities are in their corner or have the ability to help. And so these people want to take from God anything that is good. So I will see myself. My awakening happened as an adult. As an adult, I had been through enough life experiences that my awakening was almost guaranteed. I want to say, if my awakening didn't happen, it would have simply been because I chose for it not to, or I chose not to listen, or I chose not to be obedient. But my awakening was literally everything that I've gone through in this, I've been prepared for. Every part of it, I've been prepared for. I've lived this way. So my awakening is very strategic. Other people's awakenings, they come in different ways. But one thing I've learned on this journey is every time I see somebody awaken, the devil comes for them immediately. As soon as it's like they go around hunting, looking for people with a spark of light. And before that light fully gets activated, they come and they snatch people up. So I look at, you know, it could be anyone. It could be a grown woman. It could be, you know, someone in their 20s, their 30s, and they're just waking up and you can see that they have some sort of blessing on their life. And this always comes with some rough awakening, some awakening that is so aggressive because of the kind of spiritual attacks that they have to go through in order to get through it. Hold on. Because of the favor, and what people think is favor is literally you living a grueling life, a life that requires a lot of discipline, a lot of obedience, a very regimented life. And it's like they just don't want you to do that. They don't want you to tell other people about God. They don't want you to say, I love God. They just, it's like something in them. And it's not, it's like, it is something in them that wants to stop that. And I find that it's most effective when they sacrifice them as children. When they take them as kids, where you don't even, a child is young. Somebody is too young to either know better from their behavior, know how to discern threats that are around them, to be able to defend themselves. You know, children are helpless, and that's when these entities find it most, they find it most effective, most effective to come. And I've heard this so many times. I remember listening to something, and this preacher said that he recognized that this girl had a calling on her life, and she was so young, and she had already asked him, like, does he think, or what happens when if demons try to contact her in her sleep and stuff like that. And even myself, I remember having dreams when I was younger. I remember specific things happening to me as well, where, I mean, it wasn't bad, but every once in a while, if there was like a little inch, they would make themselves known. So there would be dreams that would be so vivid, where I could see that there's like not just one threat, like it's a major threat. And so this is what happens, like when you have any kind of calling on your life, you're going to notice that you face demons in regular people all the time. Sometimes you might just go somewhere, and I'm talking about outside of gang stalking, long before all of this, like young. Everywhere you go, you face some type of thing with people. It's not that they don't even not like you. There's times where you see people struggling. They want to like you, but they just can't. It's like, I just can't do it. And it's entities that use people in this way. And when I say they are merciless with us, I mean they are, like, you can see that they have zero compassion or empathy. When you meet people with no empathy, they feel nothing. These are people who are being used by demonic entities, whether they know it or not, whether it's conscious or not. And I was talking about, I think it was yesterday or the day before, Moloch being a demon that demands child sacrifice. And this is just to block God's work. That's really what it boils down to block God's work. Because they are specific about what they want sacrificed. It's not like they're like, just go and get anything. If you could just go, if these people who work for these entities could just go and just get anything and anyone, they just go grab anything. They are specific in what they grab. They're specific in who they grab. They grab people specifically that are going to work for God. These are people who are going to be an expression of God's love and protection for people in future. Just by bringing people to God, you bring protection into people's life. By introducing people to God, you bring love into people's lives. Just by doing that, you bring people, when you can bring people to God, when you have the ability to touch somebody's life and help heal someone, this is a huge service to God, because sometimes God is their actions, their ways are so far away from God that it's difficult or almost impossible to reach. And so sometimes God will ask you to go as a human being and say, go talk to this person, go bring this person in. It's important to us. So that's what really people who are prophetess, and high priestesses and high priests, that's really what they do, is they're bringing love and protection amongst other things for people. And so when they grab them, whether it's children, young adults, or when they're freshly waking up and they start trying to put these people in the wrong way, they see that you have spiritual gifts and they try to muddy you and put you in different things. This is for a reason. Sometimes God knows that on your path, things are going to happen, and they make you cross paths with certain people just to drop one message that can change a person's life. One little thing that somebody's going the wrong way, and you can say one thing and it will make them think, and you can pull that person out of the devil's grasp before they go too far. You're just put on people's path, and that's all it is. And it's like when God lives in your heart, you can just bring little ounces of God and splatter it all over the place. It's not like you have to do a lot of work in someone's life. Sometimes you just spark something. Sometimes you just plant a seed. Sometimes you just show compassion. Sometimes you just help in a dark place, and the help is not a lot, but the help is symbolic of the fact that God is real and God is love. One thing I keep wanting to mention, because it used to piss me off, and I'm working on not being upset at it. Don't bring kids to gang stalk. Leave the children at home. I don't get it. For me, it is better to leave them at home by themselves for 2 minutes than to bring them to gang stalk with you, because you're putting their hand in something that they cannot consciously be responsible for. I think if you have kids, you shouldn't be a gang stalker at all. I think you have to really understand that energy is, you are directly spiritually corded to your children. So if you have a special calling on your life, it's probably going to affect your kids in the same way that if you're doing evil, it affects the children as well. So directly involving kids' hands and stuff like that, I think is like, you're putting a demonic curse on your child's life. You're putting your child in service of demonic energies just by doing that. You're calling kids to the devil young. Conversely, bring your children to God while they're young, before the devil has a chance to get them. Let me tell you, when I had my kids, I was young and I wasn't consciously aware of this, but I remember on more than one occasion, I made an oath that I would, and I thought I was making the pact to myself. I made a pact to myself. I thought it was to myself that I will make sure that I protect my kids and put them before me, put them before my happiness, put them before everything. And I remember when I said that, to me, I was consciously aware that that meant no friendships that came before them, nothing. And so I never took vacations without them. I never went on girls' trips. I never did anything. I remember the first times, I never broke that cord that parents have, where it's like an anxiety, where if you leave your baby or your toddler with someone, it's like you panic. And so it's like you don't want to leave your kid with any babysitters. I rarely had babysitters. I never had babysitters. Like, to me, I just felt safer just not going. And I had a rule. I always said to myself, well, what if the plane crashes? And I know that's like, people will say, well, that's paranoid. But I used to say to myself, like, what if the plane crashes while I'm with my, while I'm away, and my kids have to be orphans? And people will be like, oh, well, that's paranoid. And I'm like, no, it's not. I also used to have a thing where it's like one parent has to be with the kids in case something happens to the other. I just thought like that. And for me, now that I've come all this way, I realized that that was God making me take that oath. Like, we're giving you these children to take care of, but you have to really put them first. So there was no such thing as like taking any risks whatsoever. I would never trust anybody to say, oh, well, I trust this person, they're not going to do anything to my kid. There was never anything like that. I would always put my kids first. I would always make sure that they're protected. I would stay with them, to the point that it took so much pushing for me to get, like, to give them a cell phone was a big deal. Like, they got cell phones at 16, and all their friends had from like 8, 9 years old. They, all kinds of things they had to do later, because I was thinking, I don't want them to be on a phone earlier than I can manage their mind and what is going into their mind. I don't want them to be what's the word, this whole sleeping at friends, having sleepovers, that never happened. Your friends can sleep over here. That could be a West Indian thing, because when West Indians, we are like that. Eating from people, like basic things, small things, little things, it's like I hovered. But I realized now that there would have been danger had I not done that. I didn't know that there was a spiritual calling on my life, and therefore that would make my children vulnerable. I didn't know that, but God knew that. And it's like, when God sends people over here, you're in danger. You're in danger. So you need, I know my guardian angel was my grandmother, and I'm their guardian angel. And so that's why we venerate our ancestors. That's why we pray to our ancestors, because these are our archangels. These are like people that God put there in place just for us, to take care of us. And I know that my grandmother is my archangel, that she's the one that was put in place to take care of me, that my mom had me just to put me in her hands. And I know that I'm my kid's archangel, and that I was put in place, and a number of my blessings was just so that I could give them an amazing life. I could shelter them. I could prepare them for what their calling was going to be, because I would throw myself over my kids to protect them. So when you have children, take it seriously, that these are a blessing, that these are not just your children to do whatever you want, but that these are a gift from God. These are God's gift. God's gift to you, and God's gift maybe to the world at large, that you have to take care of. You have to cultivate them into that gift. You have to take seriously things like their education. You have to take serious pushing them to their best. You have to take serious making sure that they know how to conduct themselves, when and where, all kinds of things. And when you start with being a gang stalker, and you start with showing them that they can bully people in public and that there is no consequence to their actions, you must understand that you are going to pay the consequences of that. The way we treat children is a huge deal. You're going to pay the consequences of that. Teaching children to gang stalk, I think, has to be, to me, one of the top things that you can, one of the top ways you can sacrifice a child's destiny and sacrifice a child's life. because you're grooming a child with to have no empathy. You're grooming a child to be an awful person, a person that instead of being a blessing to human beings is going to be a curse to them. um One thing I advocate is that your parental bond with your children never needs to break. That's a North American thing, where North Americans think you have to break a bond with children. Like, there's this whole thing of like parental anxiety, where you have to break the parental anxiety. Oh, no, 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 you have to learn, like you have to leave them so you can get used to it. No, you don't have to do that. My children came to every single event. If I was going to dinner, if I was doing anything, they were included. As a matter of fact, I wanted to do it to give them the experiences of everything. So it's like a lot of things just didn't make sense for me very early, like clubbing and all that. It just didn't make sense. I wanted to include my kids in it. There was nothing that I could do. And to the point that they were so much older. And the first time I did like a birthday dinner, they weren't there. They were like hurt. They were hurt for years. They wanted to talk about it. They were like, we were so hurt you didn't invite us. They were just that used to being the only children at an adult affair. If somebody invited me somewhere, I'm like, can I bring my kids? If I can't bring my kids, then I can't go. Like, straight up, I don't care how old they are. You never need to break that parental bond. It's there for a reason. You know, even with me, with my parents, I'm the same. I do not, that bond does not break. Like, there's no time where I'm gonna feel, I think I'm gonna be in my 80s and I'm still gonna feel like a child to God. I'm still gonna feel the exact same way, because I'm an adult now and I still feel like a child to them. They treat me like a child. That's just the bond. That could be maybe a cultural thing as well. But I think that's just how it is with parents. I think any culture, you always see your children as children. And so you always, as children, you always respect them as a parent. And I can understand, you know, there are people who've never really had that true understanding of that relationship. And so sometimes they may not understand what that looks like and why things have to be. Sometimes people watch TV, they watch a lot of TV, and they think like the TV parent that never disciplines, that never admonishes, that never reprimands, that never pushes, that's a great parent. Let me tell you, God reprimands me all the time, puts me back in my place all the time, talks to me all the time, coaches me, encourages all the time, warns me all the time, pushes me, push it. No, you could do better. No, do it again. No, keep going. And I get frustrated. I get mad all the time. That's what a parent does. They make you realize your fullest potential. They keep pushing you. This is, I'm not ever going to say I'm a perfect parent, because we are all human beings, but you got to strive to be a good parent. And this is one of the things that, you know, when I first used to talk about this, I used to get so upset. I used to get so angry. How can you be here gang stalking and involving children? Why are they involved in this? Why are they allowed to see this? And I've seen some children that are uncomfortable in the whole, they're uncomfortable with being around and watching their parent act like a child, watching their parent be immature in public. They are embarrassed. So, you know, this is what's on my heart to say about kids. I find North America has some weird values when it comes to kids, you know, but it is what it is. I think separation anxiety is God's way of telling you that you need to be with your children all the time, because we are with God. We are called to be with God all the time. I literally, like, you know, my parents always say to me, like, just come and say some words, come and say hi, come check in every day and all the time. So I think we need to take better care of kids, for sure, especially gifted kids. And sometimes gifted kids, you don't see that they're gifted right away. You don't see it for a long time. You just think, you know, your kid's normal, or they're a little this or they're a little that. And it's like, you just have to take care of children. We have a responsibility to be better parents and take care of children. And that means you cannot live the same way you did before you have children. You cannot live the same way after you have children than before you had children. When you have children, your whole life is for those kids while they're young. Your whole life is putting them first because they are a gift, not just to you, but like I said, to the world at large. They can either be a gift or a curse, depending on how you treat them and how you raise them. I think everyone has favor of some kind, even though some people think like they want more favor or have the greatest favor. I think everybody has some favor of some kind. Let me tell you, being of service to God is not like getting on a platform with a million people and talking to people all over the place. Like, it's not just that. There are people who have shifted your mind, shifted your life, shifted your way of thinking, shifted who you are, just through the compassion that they show. Little things. I know it happens for me and has happened for me a lot. Going through gang stalking, there were people who just extended a hand at a time that I needed it, at a time that everything was blocked from me or trying to be blocked from me. And those people might look at it like I was just doing my job or it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was a major deal to me. And every small act of kindness showed me that God is on my side, and God is in favor of me, and God is helping me and guiding me through. And it might not have been big, it might not have been monumental, but every time you go out of your way and you show compassion and you allow the God in you to be shown to other people, that opens people's heart to knowing that God actually is there, that despite whatever they're going through, and we have to go through things, we go through things in life, they happen. But despite all of that, God is present. God sees you. God is helping you. And if you take the first step forward, if you try, God will be there to catch you. That's what being of service is. Living a good life really is just feeling full. And one of the quickest ways to feel full, one of the most guaranteed ways to feel full, is by helping other people, is by being open to other people. And people do not make it easy, trust me, they don't. And not that they don't make it easy, they fight you on it, some people. But sometimes it's like that's what it takes. And it doesn't have to always be something huge, something monumental. Sometimes it's literally just compassion. I think demons come for the favor. I know demons come for the favor that you have on you. And they try to get you before you hatch and before you learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn in order to get to where you go or where you're meant to go. But I also think that some of the lessons that you learn, on your journey are meant to be learned simply through hardship. And the way you navigate problems, the way you navigate hardship, it's what prepares you for what you need to come into. So what I mean by that is there are some people who are spiritually gifted, not in the dark. I'm going to talk about in the light, spiritually gifted in the light. And these people learned all of that by being aggressively spiritually attacked. And it took all that attack, relentless attacks, and it took all of that to come full circle for them to be able to say, well, you know, I can do this, I can do that, I can heal, I can whatever, because they have been through something. Even people who are especially healers can heal because they've been through so much trauma. They've been through pain and they don't want, it hurts to see other people go through it. The way you go through your trauma is what determines how you come out of the situation, because you will come out. No one stays an entire lifetime in darkness. It ends. If you're going through it and you allow it to bring you down and you allow it to tear at your inner peace and your goodness and your light, you come out not as yourself. I've gone through so much in the last couple of years, and I can tell you it's made me closer to God. Have I been wounded from it? Yes. Has it changed parts of me? Absolutely. But have I come out bitter and angry and vengeful? I could have, but I had to do my healing. I had to do my healing, and I can say healing is perpetual. Healing is not a one-time thing. It is an over and over and over again type of situation. It is something that you got to keep doing. You got to keep at doing, especially when you're working with God and working for God. You got to keep healing yourself. You got to keep, you know what, and the more you heal and you get back into that compassionate place, is the more you start saying to yourself, like, this heart that I have is going to be the end of me, because you see people taking advantage of you. You see people using your kindness as stupidity over and over. And it's just like, it's just a very difficult walk for a number of reasons. But regardless of what you go through, you're really supposed to be looking at life from the vantage point of learning from experiences and growing from them. After going through hardships, the lessons you learn are supposed to carry you across the threshold. And when you get to the place that you're supposed to be, that is what makes you effective in your role. Sometimes what you think is your role is not the role yet. It's the training for the role. And when you actually get there, you're like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I went through all those things in my life to learn, is how to get through all of this stuff. So the demons know that they definitely want to come for you in your incubation stage. They don't want to come for you when you're strong. They don't want to come for you when you fully ascended. In your incubation stage is where they want to come for you, because that is when you're weak, you don't know better, you're going to make mistakes, you're not strong, you know, all kinds of things are weak, your self-control, you're very reactive, all of that. But trust and have faith that you're going through we go through a number of the things that we go through in order to make us stronger. One thing that I have learned, and anybody who's going through this thing should learn, is that there are elaborate systems of control and illusion around us. Elaborate systems of control and illusion. Like, these people they will buy land, build a church, get a whole bunch of paid actors as congregants, a paid priest or preacher, come every Sunday, and the actual real people in the congregation, if it holds 1,000 people, will be like 10. It's all fake. It's crazy. It is nuts. And that is not just in gang stalking, when gang stalkers surround you. I mean, that is in all kinds of places. I talk about Hollywood being one of the biggest ones, film industry. I don't think there's a place that they're not. I think they're everywhere. Every company, everywhere. We live in a matrix. This is all an illusion. This is all fake. So as soon as you're gang stalked, it's like they pull the veil from your eyes and they're like, haha, well, they show you their true face. So you just realize that it's all true. And I never really was a person that tried to like convince people, sit down and like go through the whole thing. Like, I was never really like that. So I can't say that I've stopped doing it, but there's no point in trying to really, I don't know, for me, I feel like there's no point in trying to beat it into people's heads, because when you're asleep, it's a comfortable sleep. It's a nice sleep. I remember when I was asleep, it was comfortable. It was very nice. So it's like when you're just awakening, you want to go back to that. You're like, I just want to go back to my life, but your life was an illusion. And this illusion is around everybody, and people learn that slowly but surely. People who think that they're a part of the illusion, the veil gets ripped from their face and they realize this also too around you was an illusion. Nobody is exempt from it. Everything was a lie. This was also an illusion. And then they start living that reality. No one is safe here. That's the point. These things are put in place by dark energies. No one is safe here. They fashion their kingdoms like God's kingdom. So It's the same kind of setup. You know, you come in, they want to strip you of everything. They put you completely naked, no friends, no family, no this and that. You come into their community, they want to give you everything. They spoon feed you bread and butter. They're everybody on all your platforms, and you're just looking at it and you're like, they're gonna torpedo and this platform whenever they're ready. They're gonna get rid of this person's money whenever they're ready. They're gonna stop their people from sending money. They're gonna stop people from supporting. They're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. And it's like, it's everywhere. So such is life. This is how it goes. You have to, well, it's not that you have to, you will have no choice. When the time comes, you will see for yourself that you're a part of it. One thing that this journey has definitely shown me is that there is no point. Sometimes when you try to convince somebody of something or people of something so too hard, they think that you're being conniving. But really, you have to wait for people to see for themselves. Like sometimes it's like life will show people for themselves, you know, what it's about. I remember, like, for years, everybody, there's this singer called Tinashe, and for years this girl has been trying to break into the industry, and they were cruel to her. It wasn't just that they didn't like her, it's like people used to notice. They're like, wait, why are people so aggressive with this particular girl? And not until did she put out that song, that nasty song, did all of a sudden that song blew up. And that song is clearly devil worshiping. That's a song that glorifies. It's, listen, and here's the thing, people tend to think that when you speak this way, it's like you have a problem with sex or God has a problem with sex. Absolutely not. It's that they're using sex to attach demonic entities to people, a spirit of lust. And it may sound harmless at first, it may look harmless because you're not harming anyone, until it gets out of control. And lust is one of the means by which you destroy a person. Lust is one of the means by which you can tarnish a person's reputation. When people have children in an irresponsible manner, when now they're going to court with multiple people over multiple kids, when they have certain issues, like, this is what happens. It becomes it destroys your life. It does. And there are some people who are so, I've met along this journey, people who are so out of control with lustful energies. It is mortifying. They have been embarrassed by their behavior, things that they do. So it's like, that is a way that they use to try to indoctrinate children and pull children from God before children even have time to find themselves and grow and develop. Is they put it in the music, they put it in the shows, they put it in the kind of clothing kids are wearing, the kind of, you know, the way they dress, the way they behave. It's like they're adults in a lustful way before their time, and then they're attracting certain energies, and they're attracting lustful men, lustful women, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's out of control. And so regardless of if people might think this opinion is puritanical, and it's like, you know, you're being like, you know, this and that, God doesn't have an issue with and not just procreation, but, you know, having sex to enjoy life, but it's for your own protection. And she's one of those people I can use as a direct example, that as soon as they find these people, they come into the industry, and these people are resistant to dressing a certain way, promoting, you know, a certain brand of music, what, they block their path. And not until these people agree, finally, do these people finally get to, like, break through. So they like to be gatekeepers on people, where it's like, you won't push through or get anywhere without devil worshiping. And God is here to say, absolutely not. Your path might be harder, it might be longer, and, like I call it, taking the stairs, but you're gonna get there. And I think there are celebrities, huge celebrities, that have made it in that industry without doing things that other people had to do, without getting naked, without, you know, like, gyrating on stage and doing all this kind of corrupt stuff. There are people who made it without doing all of that. It's just harder. It's just more frustrating. It's just more annoying, and it might take longer. you have to trust God on this journey. It's like when you get into this position and you have to get something that's yours, you have to hatch it in opposition. You got to give God time. You got to take your time. You got to be patient. It's not what you do anymore, it's how you do it. You have to have faith and hope. So once you get on this path, you literally have to say, listen, the only thing that I care about is not having you. And I'm like that with God. I'm like, listen, whatever we're promised, I'm following whatever you say step by step. But if I never get it, as long as I have you, I'm good. And I'm not even doing this to get anything, to be honest with you. This is not even about getting anything. When you're on this path, when you're on this journey, this is about the love of God. Because the people who do this is about the love of the devil for them, trust me. And yes, it could be about money as well, and it probably is, because that's probably what they made the deal with the devil for, is to get money. But at the end of the day, they love that energy. They enjoy that energy. They worship that energy. So please do understand, when you get on this journey with God, it's about a love for God. And I always say I would prefer to have, nothing, all these things that they wish on you. To be sick, to not have money, to be homeless. I could be all of that as long as I have God. God doesn't want you to have that, but I could be all of that easily and not worry about a thing, because I know God. It's not I've met God. It's not just I've met God as in once. I know God. So what is it gonna change? It's not gonna change anything. We're not gonna bow to something else just to avoid homelessness or not having money or not being frustrated or none of the above. God is being patient with people. None of these energies can do anything to God. None of these energies can do anything to God's children. We have to trust our path, have hope, and have faith. As easy as I make it sound is as easy as it is for me, to be honest with you. It is very easy to just say, however I get there, I get there. Like, this is a journey. I'm learning a lot and get stronger. I get smarter. I get more, I don't want to say crafty, but whatever the word is, I get more of an ability to say, I don't care whatever the obstacle is. You learn to go through things very calmly, and just, you forget about like panic and all of, like, you forget about all of that. You just know it's gonna work out, because it always works out, and you just call it a day. If you're going on this journey and it's for a specific end, it's gonna be hard, and because you don't know how long this is gonna take until you start listening to other people's stories. And I've heard other people, Beyonce being one, talk about how difficult it was on her journey, how many roadblocks she had to go through. And it's funny, because you're like, this is Beyonce. You would think that everything was just handed, or it was like an easy, because of how big she is, and it's not. It really is not. So I would just, myself, my advice to people is, to me, it's not as important to get somewhere as how I get there. Getting somewhere with integrity, getting somewhere where you haven't stolen from people, where you've built something for yourself, the joy of watching something grow, creating things on your own. And I don't know, what anybody's specific path is, but, I can only relate to myself and other people I see on this journey as well. Literally just trusting God and taking your time and having blind faith. Faith will be tested. If you have blind faith long enough, there comes a time where it stops feeling like faith. It's just the natural way you are. You just trust God. Literally go to bed with a problem peacefully, because you trust God. And while you're sleeping, God's working that problem out. And that's how it goes. And when God hands you an assignment and hands you something to do, you're working it out. You're waking up scratching your head like, okay, how are we going to get this done? I don't think these illusions are really strong. These are very strong illusions. These illusions are so good that there is no point in trying to explain that to people. There's no point in trying to say to people, that's fake, that's a lie, that doesn't work. These people, there's no point. You literally have to Everybody has to go on their journey. And maybe sometimes, and you don't want to wake people up too early either, is what I realized. Like, God wakes people up on God's own time. So if you try to convince people, people are going to think you're paranoid. So you just have to let it be and let people flow through it. Energy doesn't lie. You can say that God exists. You can say everything that you're going through. I think everything that I talk about spiritually, if I were to play my videos to old people that I know or that were in my path, I'm pretty sure that they would not relate. They wouldn't understand what I'm saying at all. But it's the truth. It's my truth. I know it to be true. And, you know, I don't think everybody thinks that it's not true. I think that it's definitely been proven and people definitely see it in their lives as well. So these illusions, it's just like with the gang stalking, like trying to explain this to people is just, I don't waste my energy. It is what it is. I'm very quick to just let people just say whatever. When I woke up, I was like everybody else. You're shocked. You're in disbelief that literally, I wouldn't say everybody in your life is a plant. Not everybody in your, but a lot of people were a plant. For me, it surrounded my business. A lot of people surrounding my business were plants. And so people would meet me through the business and then it would trickle into my personal life, trying to be friends with me. For other people, it could be all, it could be business, it could be friendships. They did accept some of the friendships. It could be their business partners. It could be people that they've ended up in relationships with. And I have compassion for people like that, because when you find out that people in these critical roles in your life were planted into your life to handle you, I'm sure that it feels horrible. A lot of the times you realize what you were serving with your actions, even though your heart was in one place and your intentions were in one place and your motivations were in one place, but your actions, your actual actions. So for me, what I was producing was in service of the wrong thing. And I knew that, and I felt discomfort with it, and I didn't like it for the longest time, but I kept pushing through with it. And sometimes that's what happens, is we override our intuition and we find ourselves in certain positions. I also do think, though, the same way that people plant people in your life, God plants you in people's lives. When I went through this, I was so completely surrounded, and I had so many of their people around me that I was like a blaring noise in the middle of their camp when I started to talk out, because there was so many. It was like that was all that was surrounding. I think God plants you in places that you need to be. God makes you get a position in the place that you need to be. So I was very popular in that crowd to begin with. So as soon as things were happening, it was very loud. Everybody knew. And it wasn't hard to believe my story because people had already seen that. They already knew that. Now, had I stayed, you know, in a corporate job and not really coming around people and isolated and all that, and nobody knew me, then it would have definitely been extremely easy to move forward with the plans that people had on my life. So God makes preparations and plans for you long before. There's a difference between having a relationship with God and working for the devil. When you work for the devil, it's transactional. And when you work with, and when not when you work with or for God, but when you have a relationship with God, once you have a relationship with God, you have to understand that they make preparations for you. They plan for your life. They already know. They already know where you're going to live, how you're going to eat, where you're going to go, what you're going to wear. They know all of it. You're just the one. You're the one who is walking nervous, is walking doubtful. They already know how this is going to play out. They already know. So some of it is to, I still don't believe God really tests people. I think God knows how people are going to behave. But I think a lot of it is to guide you on your path and teach you, these are the things you have to look out for. This is when you get to where you're going, this is how you have to behave. This is how you have to watch for. These are the possibilities. So you know how to conduct yourself from now. You know how to build things from now. Where was I? People don't realize that they need God. They don't realize it. People realize that too late. We actually need God. This whole thing of like God is boring and God is what, that's not true. It's not like that at all. A real relationship with God is not like the way, it's kind of like, but not really like the way the Bible describes it, where you think like this is boring. Like, I don't want to talk to God. What, like, no, this is like a two-way conversation. I ask them how they are. How are you guys feeling? Like, it's not just, it's not like how people think. It really isn't. Some days it is. A lot of days it's super relaxed. A lot of days it's just like, it's literally, you know, the relationship with God is literally a relationship with parental units. Kid you not. And there are some people who think like parental unit relationships, before my relationship with God, I used to think parental relationships were like very strict and not very open. And the relationship I have with them is so open. It's like, I can almost describe it as friendship in a sense, but it is so understanding. I'm the one who's more like, I'm the one they have to tell, like, could you relax? Like, be mature. Like, don't be so, you know, whatever. It's not like that. Don't approach a relationship with God as if you're approaching it. Even people who do witchcraft and spell work, they know that entities, spirits, are not like how people think. Spirits are, I call them people because they behave that way. They behave like people. They're like people. And gods have more drama than regular people. Like whenever you read about godlike figures, deities, lesser gods, small gods, I call them. Whenever you read about small gods, they have more drama. They're worse than normal people. It's insane. So don't think about it, spirituality, like you think about just reading the Bible where it's boring and you just like do a boring prayer and whatever. It's not. It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. If you wrote, that's why they write stories about it, they produce shows about it, they write books about it. It's entertaining. I mean, when you're going through it, it doesn't feel entertaining, but you know, it's not like that. So when I was reading the Bible and it said that these people do not take delight in my word, I feel like it's because they don't know God. They just don't understand God. God's hilarious. Like, there's a sense of humor. They are, they have their own thoughts and feelings. They get upset by things. They get jealous. They you know, like, if you, they want things, they have feelings, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just how the Bible shows. So when you see passages like this in the Bible, it's because people have really offended God. And how do you expect God to feel? It's like, you're not something to fear. Why are you behaving like this? There are a lot more demons around us than you want to think. They're everywhere all the time. They are riding in, I want to say, almost everyone. Everybody has the capacity to carry that energy. Even if they may not carry that energy as an entity, you can house that energy for a period of time. It may not be long, it may be a couple hours even, but we all have the ability to be in devil energy, is what I'm saying. So it's around. And somebody who, or even a thing, it could be a pet, it could be a child, it could be, you know, whoever. When the devil has an agenda, they will use people temporarily, try to take over people temporarily at a low point to get something achieved. Even if it's putting fights between couples, if it's using, you know, a child to do something, to suggest something, using an animal to do something, they work through other energies to get their way, to get things done. So you have to kind of look at life like that when you go through life, that there are entities everywhere and you have to remain protected. People tend to look at life as if like God is going to come and do absolutely everything for us, and that's not true. God doesn't just come and wave a magic wand. There are times, yes, it is like that. They wave a magic wand and something, but God doesn't necessarily just come and do everything for you. A lot of times your participation is required, most of the time. Your participation is dependent upon. That's why God sends people down here to do this work. They depend on you to go in places where they necessarily cannot reach or be effective. God can be effective where God is invited. God cannot be, it's like saying that it's like the devil trying to, or demonic energy trying to come into a congregation of divine people. They're not gonna have any reach or any say there. They have to send a human being in with their energy to come and cause some chaos. They themselves cannot go there. They've not been invited in that space. It's the same with God. There's a group that is dark. God will send a messenger to talk to them. They don't prefer to clean a mess up like that. They prefer to have people just realize what's like, back down, learn. People definitely are put in position to pin each other down. People gatekeep information, destroy relationships, withhold compassion and empathy from each other, and they don't understand that they're in service of something, and that when that something wants to discard them, it can discard them as well. There is nobody. I think the gatekeepers have gatekeepers. The handlers have handlers. I don't think I know. As high up as you can go, there's always something that is in control of something else. So at some point, you have to be brave to pull out of that rat race, to pull out of that, what do they call that? Well, this doesn't apply here, but just to pull out of that link, pull yourself out of it. It's going to take some bravery. It's going to take some strength to no longer participate in, whatever this lunacy is. People sit here and devise ways to destroy each other as an occupation. Like, it's crazy to think about. One of the things that came to me today was, and I always knew this, I knew this from the beginning, people try to stop you from working. And I mean, people get very personally invested in these things, and no one is free. No one here is free. Everybody here is a victim in some way. The good news is, to be honest with you, that God is here. The gods are here. They are very, very specific about, and I think we all felt this energy. I think people that were in the know or in control understood that in 2020 there was going to be a transition of power. And you read in the Bible in Revelations that they don't want to transition power. They don't want to put power in the hands of divine beings and God that are going to want to govern the world in a very just way. And so the way that it is that we're going to have to fight for that exchange of power, because, they were given a contract for a bit and they don't want to let go of it. And it's very apparent that they're not going to win. And it's been 4 years from 2020. A lot of people started getting gang stalked. Like, there were a lot of people that I've read their story, those I believe anyway, that said that their gang stalking started in 2020. Their awakening started in 2020, their spiritual awakening, people who met the people that they were supposed to meet in life, soul family and whatnot. And not everybody wants to come on board. Like, there are people who are meant to come into God's kingdom, meant to have critical positions, but not everybody wants to come, and people have free will. It's just like with you look at demons are fallen angels. They don't want to come on board, and you can't force people to want to do something that they don't want to do. You have to accept it for what it is, and for me in my situation, I kind of just wait to see, when my parents are, how they're going to feel, at what point they're going to say, it is what it is with certain energies. But, they'll try. God will try to make us see things, their way. They will tell you everything that is in store for you. I told them early on, because God said, listen, this is what we want for you. And I was like, listen, you guys want that for me, and I just want you. And that's the honest truth. Like they want certain things from me, and I'm like, as long as I have you, I'm good. And I mean that. And I feel like that's the way to walk the spiritual path. That is the guaranteed way, because things are going to happen on this path. When you're aligned with certain energies, that's what happens. I think about people who their parent is a politician. They can't just go to a normal school. They got to go to a private school with other people whose children are also looking for protection and safety and privacy. They can't just get up and go to a restaurant at New Year's like everybody else, or they're going to end up in a blog. They're going to end up with a lawsuit of somebody who did something. They have to go certain places, go at certain times, be in the private room, do this, do that in order to have a life. They can't have the same life. You have to look at it like that. It's not their parents' fault. Their parents are following a path and doing something amazing. It just is what it comes with. It just comes with the table, like a tablecloth, like a waiter, like a menu. It just comes with it. So you have to be prepared that these things are going to happen, and you're going to have the ability to have faith and strength to walk through it. It's not like being on that side where it's the popular side and everybody's over there and nobody's going to attack you when you're doing low vibrational things. As soon as you want to be somebody who's going to advocate, like, don't sleep around, don't drink, don't do drugs, don't do this, don't do that, then they start coming for you. And then they start looking for everything that could be wrong in your life and telling you, oh, but you do this and you do that. And just trying to, because they want to do the drugs. It's like, listen, if you want to do the drugs, knock yourself out. Somebody's just telling you a different way. Consider it or not. But it's like we now have crafted a society where every time you try to tell somebody something for their own good, they start going off the rails and making you a bad person. And you're trying to literally say, like, there's a reason why. It's not just to feel better than other people. There's a reason why people are saying these things. There's a reason why sexual purity is a thing. Taking care of yourself sexually is a thing. It doesn't mean you're going to die a virgin. It doesn't mean sex is wrong, but there's a reason. There's a reason that you don't, and people are living the consequences of that, and they still want to defend it. There's a reason why you don't serve false gods. There's a reason why you don't just light an altar to just anything. We come here with spirit guides. You don't abandon your appointed spirit guides who operate with you out of love to go buy entities. There's a reason why. There's a reason for everything. There are reasons for all of these things. It's not just because somebody wants to like beat down on you or whatever. Listen, when God is ready for me, like there's some times where certain videos come across my screen and I know God wants to talk to me that day. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And some days it's really hard to listen to because the way the message is coming is not even aggressive. It's compassionate. I think it's even worse because I know I'm in the wrong. And the way the message is coming, it's like God saying to me, look, you got to do this, you got to do that. We don't do this, we don't do that. And I feel justified. I feel like I'm in the right. And they're saying, we're not saying we don't see why, but we're saying, no, here is the reason why. And sometimes those messages are very hard to receive because I feel like I failed in some way, or I feel like they're not seeing it my way or whatever. It's not about that. Everybody goes through being admonished and being told better. But you see it. On this path, I've seen why we don't do certain things. I've been grateful that I've listened. Every time I've gone and done something, anytime I've gone and done something that I should not have done, I pay for it. And every time God tells me to listen, pay attention, do it our way, I see why. And sometimes I see why just in time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm never not listening again. One thing I'm grateful for is I try to learn my lesson as far as once I get my hand slapped, and it's not necessarily the universe doing it, sometimes it's just a consequence of my actions, that I follow instructions and I listen. I'm gonna wrap it up. I went No, I did about as long as I wanted to do. Was that about no, almost 2 hours. Um, the long and short of my message is, listen, I see a lot of people constantly talking about that gang stalking is like military related and stuff like that. And like, let me be honest, I don't think so. I see a lot of spiritual warfare here. I see a lot of entities here. I think this is a demonic rant. Even the people who say it's the military know that there's demonic activity, and they say both. I don't see military here. I see demonic activity. I see Satanists. I see satanic activity. I see people who worship the devil, who are committed to it, and I see people who've sold their soul to the devil through and through, straight up and down. I see people who are trying to stop God's work. I see people who are trying to block God being spoken about in public. That is what I see. And from that vantage point, that's how I go about it. And spirituality has worked for me. And I want to say, even if it is military or not, I just still think prayer heals all wounds and prayer solves all problems. And I just want to let you know, it is impossible to be perfect on this journey. I have to repent all the time. The longer I stay here, the more I have to repent every day. Every day I have to repent. Honestly, this dealing with satanic energy and devil energy is confusing because it's not logical. It's something where you have to remind yourself constantly, like, I'm not dealing with normal people here. I'm not dealing with normal situations here. It is long suffering. When they say it's long suffering, it's suffering for a long time. This is what it feels like. So when you're being gang stalked, you're being spiritually persecuted. That's what's happening to you. They're trying to sacrifice you to the devil. You have demons that are assigned to you and over your life, and you need God. And trying to walk this alone is a complete waste of time, because those of us that are walking with God are already being tried and tested. I cannot imagine the suffering that people are going through that are walking this alone. You have people who don't know you from a hole in the wall, who have personal feelings about you, who feel they know you, who are all up in your business. It's very crazy. You have to grow in strength. You have to grow in, and it's a fine line. It's a middle path. It's a middle walk. You can't just be oh so compassionate. What? No, you're gonna end up dead. And you can't be just purely aggressive. You have to find a way to walk in the middle. The middle path is the hardest path. It is easy to be purely compassionate, you just have one target. It's easy to be purely evil, you just have one way of being. Walking a middle path and walking the fine line between being a good person with good intentions and making sure you defend yourself and making sure you take care of yourself and you don't make silly decisions. This is difficult. This takes getting used to, and it takes a while to get used to. So, this is my message for tonight. Hope somebody got something from it. Have yourself a good night.